In a recent interview with Sportsnet, Patrik Allvin reveals a lot on the Vancouver Canucks, including trade talks, contract extensions, and calling out star players. We're going to break all this down and more later on this episode. Before we start, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone that's subscribed. To the 72% of you guys that aren't subscribed yet, if you're enjoying this content, it's completely free, and we'll keep you up to date on everything to do with the Canucks. But with that, let's just dive straight into the interview that Patrik Allvin had with Sportsnet that reveals quite a bit about the Vancouver Canucks, starting off with goaltender Kevin Lankinen and a possible extension going into next year for the goaltender. The question was, has Lankinen changed your long-term outlook on the Canucks goaltending? Is there a way you can keep both Lankinen and Demko beyond this season? Allvin said there's ways to afford it if we want to go down the path. They think Lankinen has been really good for us at that point. Looking at the past career in the National Hockey League, this is the most he has played. It's a small sample size, but without a doubt, he's been very good. Now we've seen Lankinen come in and steal the starting role from Shilovs to start the year, setting an NHL record for the most road wins to start a season in NHL history. Lankinen is in on less than 900,000 with this team, and he's been a gem for the Vancouver Canucks and does show a future outlook on what the goaltending may look like. Like Allvin said, this is a small sample size, but this, and I want to point out, was the fact that the small sample size was as a starting goaltender with this team. Allvin knows that Lankinen is a huge part of this team, and I do think we're going to see an extension. Obviously, the dollar amount is going to mean a lot, and that kind of pushes Shilovs into a weird spot with this team. But as of right now, it seems like Kevin Lankinen is highly praised by this team and may end up signing an extension. Now, we do have to go straight into the next part, which is getting into another possible contract extension, which is on Brock Boeser. Now, this was, Rutherford recently told Hockey Night in Canada that there is a difference of opinion between the two sides over the Boeser contract. Allvin goes in and says, I think there's still time. I think those things. It could happen quickly, but again, we're trying to figure out what we are as a team and what we need to be more consistent. I'm happy that Brock is scoring goals here lately, but I would have him in the same boat as Petey and Miller in terms of giving us more when we need more. There is more to give. Absolutely. Now, the biggest thing to look at here is the fact that he says they need more out of Brock. Yes, he's scoring goals, but they need him to step up like Petey and Miller need to do and give them more. Now, this is big talk coming from a GM, and especially with the player going into a contract year, in a contract year, with the possibility of re-signing going into next year. Brock Boeser has been a huge part of this team. We've seen him light it up in the playoffs before going down with an injury. Patrik Allvin did not hold back on guys like Brock and other players, which I will touch on later, but seeing him holding these players accountable, letting them know, yes, you might be scoring goals, but you still need to provide more. You still need to go out and give us everything. To be a part of this club is something that I love coming from Patrik Allvin, where he will not let any passenger stay on this team. Not saying Brock's a passenger, because Brock has been huge for this team, but showing that he needs more effort from absolutely everyone. Now, it does continue into some trade talk, where we did see the reporter ask at the stage last year, he had already acquired Nikita Sidorov and were close on a blockbuster deal for Elias Lindholm. Have you been close this far at getting a deal that you want? He responds, there's been some in-depth conversations around the league. The parity of the league makes it harder because a lot of teams feel like they're still in it. Other teams, the same boat as us, we play tremendous games against Florida and Colorado. Then in between, it's like, what happened here? What are we? Now this, once again, it's just showing that Allvin knows this team can be good, but goes through stretches. We've seen them win huge games, like it says, against Florida, against Colorado, just to go out and blow a 4-1 lead to the Seattle Kraken. Jim Rutherford especially loves to make early trades in the season to set the market. We haven't really seen it this year, but this is showing the Canucks are actively looking to acquire more players, and I will continue into the fact that they do have cap space to do this. Going into the deadline, they have $5.687 million to spend on players. Players are about half their contract by the time deadline rolls around, as half their contract's already played out, so they can go out and acquire quite a good player or quite two good players to add to this team if they want to continue on and make a push for the Stanley Cup, which they do want to do. I don't have the exact quote, but they pretty much, and Patrik Allvin said, they want to continue pushing to make the playoffs, and obviously every team wants to do this, but the Canucks are in the position to really make a push, especially if they finally upgrade the defense by adding a puck-moving defenseman. That would be huge for this team. Now, we did also get a quote on, is it difficult as a GM to be patient and wait for the right trade when the team is scuffling? He says, from a GM's perspective, look at how there are hardly any trades. Even lateral trades, it's just hard. So it's more like, how do you work and fix the players that we have? How do I see if I could shake things up and send a message to players? Sometimes that is what's needed. Now, once again, Patrik Allvin did not hold back in this interview at all, and I'm so happy that he never, honestly, quite frankly. This is a team that had went out and got Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm last year after looking like the best team in the West, going out and losing in Game 7 to the Edmonton Oilers. We've seen them come into this year looking hot and then crumbling as the season went on. I'm not going to say they had a hottest start as last year, but the Canucks are still high up in the standings, and seeing that they have the cap space to make the trades, it's only a matter of time. And like it says, sometimes you need to send a message to the players. That is what's needed, or sometimes that is what's needed. So it seems like Allvin knows that there is a huge possibility that they're going to have to go out, make a trade, shake things up to get it across players that, hey, we're not going to settle for a just half-ass, for the lack of better words, a play style. But looking at Allvin, he wants to shake things up. He wants to make this a competitive team, which we all know they can be. They just need to get going. Now, this does lead into the fact that the Canucks, yes, they have been struggling to start the year, but they still are 15th in the NHL after missing key injuries throughout the season. This is injuries to Brock Boeser, Demko, Petey, Hronek, Quinn Hughes is now out. There's multiple players that are out. And looking at this, he does go out to talk about Elias Pettersson, and they talk about Quinn Hughes has been fabulous on defense. Thatcher Demko and JT Miller, Boeser, all miss significant time. Filip Hronek is still out. But what about Elias Pettersson, who didn't miss a game until Saturday? I think, again, it comes back to the expectation and preparation, how you prepare yourself. I don't think that's aware of just how hard it's going to be. Just because you achieve one thing to get a long-term extension, which was $92.8 million, life gets harder. You haven't really accomplished anything. You're not even halfway there to winning a Stanley Cup. And then obviously the mental part comes in there too, and suddenly you feel the pressure. Now, this is a quote that a lot of people are going to look at and say, wow, I was not expecting this from Patrik Allvin, because quite frankly, I was not either. He did not hold back in anything in this interview. We've seen Brock Boeser extension being talked about, and he said we need him to play better. We see Petey brought up in this interview, and you can pause, you can read through this again. He said, we need him to play better. You're not even halfway to a Stanley Cup. It continues on to them talking about the Petey's trade protection doesn't start until next year. But is moving your 26-year-old star actually possible? Allvin said with a smile, well, you know Jim's history. We want to build a team and set up long-term success, building around the long-term deals of Miller and Petey, having Quinn and Demko locked up. You can pause this, you can work your way through. But he said he needs to mature and understand that certain expectations, and it does not get easier. You need to face the music when things don't go well. Is a trade possible? I guess I would say anything is possible. Now, this is a hard-hitting quote just coming from Patrik Allvin. Yes, the big thing to point out, he was smiling. He said, well, you know Jim's history. So looking at this, I would like to think that, yes, this is a joke. But the biggest thing is we're hoping this does not cause a rift with Elias Pettersson and management, which I don't think it's going to do. It's more of Allvin going out and saying, hey, anything is possible with this team. Anyone, it could be traded at any point, if not living up to their next contract or the current contracts they signed, where we've seen Elias Pettersson sign his contract just a few years ago. But looking at this, what's your guys' thoughts on everything that was talked about in this video? What's your thoughts on calling out Elias Pettersson as a player on his own? What's your thoughts on saying he needs more out of Brock? The possible of a Lankinen extension, and how they're still actively looking for trades, and maybe a shakeup is what this team needs. Let us know down in the comments, right down there. Leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. And I just want to say, depending on when you're watching this, it might be New Year's Day or it might be New Year's Eve. I just want to give give a huge shout out to everyone that's been watching this channel for the past year. Even if you're a new subscriber or a new viewer, I want to give a shout out and just say Happy New Year's to everyone. Thank you for coming along on this ride, the highs, the lows, the bad takes, the hot takes, the good takes, everything in between. Just want to give a shout out to all you guys for making any of this happen and enjoying the content. But I've been your host, Mark Pye, and Happy New Year's, and we'll see you tomorrow.